Hi, welcome to another webinar from Ellie Publishing. I'm Andy, and today we're going to look at speaking skills with teens and young adults. And we're going to look at, first of all, how they maybe hold back a little bit and don't want to talk, and then how we can do something about that. And we're going to look at material from Sprint, which is a 4-level A1 to B1 course with all the bits and pieces you'd want to get those kids talking. And my email is there on the slide at the bottom and also at the end of this webinar, and you can always email me with comments and feedback, questions or links that I may not be showing here for some reason. And the team for Ellie, the international representatives, can be contacted there at international@ellieonline.com, and you can follow Ellie on the various social media channels. The website over is on the right hand corner. So why don't they speak? I mean, we know that feeling, you know, you go in with your best lesson and they're just not going to say anything. They're just staring at you, and you open that question or you show a picture, nothing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are good days and bad days, of course, and some things you know are going to work. But why don't let's think a bit about why don't they want to say anything? And the first thing people say is, oh, well, they're teenagers, aren't they? And if you think about it, I know what you mean, but teenagers actually talk a lot. Maybe not the way you want them to, but I think what we do know is they have a lot of energy, and a lot of things to say for themselves. We'll come to that in a second, but I think to one extent you can say maybe they're at that age where they feel self-conscious. I think, you know, and it's not their fault, remember. I mean, they're having a pretty interesting time of change, aren't they? And we have to be very compassionate and mindful about what it is like to be a teenager. I mean, come on, let's remember, I don't think we were that keen on school or being told to speak in a foreign language. So although we can get over some of the hurdles, I wouldn't push them too hard. I would be kind of mindful that they, you know, are feeling a bit strange. It's a bit weird, isn't it? You know, you're 15 years old, you're 14, and you've got to turn to your partner and talk in a foreign language, and normally you're chatting every day in your own language. I mean, the artifice in classroom pair work, I think we have to be a little kind and assume nothing about their sense of wanting to be involved. So we've got some tools in our toolkit for that coming up, but we have to remember they are self-conscious. They're very aware of, you know, being, you know, laughed at by their peers, and their self-esteem, of course, is up and down, isn't it? All those hormones raging, and then wondering, you know, are they liked? Will they be popular? If they stand out, will they, you know, be picked on? And there's a lot of things going on in the classroom, and you know that, and you can Google all sorts of interesting videos and articles about teens and what makes them tick. But I certainly would be constantly mindful that we were teenagers. We may have struggled, didn't we? And we've got to do our best to kind of ride that wave with them. Sometimes we have to remember they may not want to speak because they don't have the language. I mean, we may feel we've done a really good lesson, and maybe they've filled in the workbooks beautifully, but that doesn't mean they can speak. And speaking is really hard in a foreign language. Even when you're not a beginner, you've still got to think pretty quickly, think of those endings, think of the adjectives, and it's hard, I think. And you know, I think by the time we're teachers, even young teachers, we have to remember that there was a time when we were beginning to try and speak, and the classroom situation is only a classroom situation. It can't be the real thing easily. So I think managing our expectations and their expectations are the way to go. But do they have enough language? Have we really supported them to do the activity with the correct language? And maybe we should look at that. And let's also remember, if they're not speaking and you've tried a few different things, maybe your lesson isn't the right lesson. Maybe it's too high in level, or maybe they just don't like it. Maybe they don't know enough about it. Maybe they're feeling that, you know, well, I guess I know the English here and I can see what the teacher's doing, but we don't know enough about the subject. In which case, maybe it could be a flipped classroom situation where you give them some work a few lessons before or a few days before to find out more so that they are informed. I mean, not every lesson has to teach them new things apart from the language. Maybe we want them to know as much as possible in whatever language helps them, so that we're not testing their knowledge or teaching them new things. We just want them to express themselves in English, possibly about something that they know already. In fact, that's quite a good idea, I think. You know, when they know, for example, a film or a TV show, or you know, something that they do every day, that it's their knowledge, they know this. And we're not trying to find out new things, we're trying to see how they can talk about that in their own, in their foreign language, which is English in this case. And maybe we've given them a topic and they don't really have an opinion. I mean, we can't point to the students every time and say, come on, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? And I mean, they might be self-conscious about showing their opinions, or maybe they just don't have one, you know. So maybe we have to find topics or come round on topics that will give them something to really talk about. And later on in the session, we're going to pick on a few things that will just maybe provoke them. I mean, why not? Provoke them, I mean, nicely, but you can provoke an opinion. You can come up with some things that will really spark some conversations, or at least some responses. And of course, you know, you can't win all the students over all the time. They've come to a class, it's English, next hour they've got biology, they've just had maths. I mean, there's a lot against, you know, really being successful to do this. So I think this comes back to giving them manageable tasks. We'll come to a list of what we can do about this, but manageable tasks, keeping it clear, and then, you know, not expecting too much, but over time we can build up a speaking habit with the students. And you know, this is the point where some teachers insist that all things in the classroom must be said in English by you and by them, and that maybe works in some schools, but I don't think it works in every class, and I don't think it works in every class for every school, unless you're a sort of major bilingual school where that's the rule. But I could argue, even if that is the school that you're in, if you examine the classroom, is it really working for the students? Do they really feel comfortable and full of energy to talk in English all the time? That's a lot. If it's a school where every single subject is in English, well, I guess that's different. But I think, you know, I've often likened this to being underwater, really. When you go underwater, you've got to hold your breath and you really want to come up for air. I think if students are constantly having to speak in English for 45, 50 minutes and you're only in English all the time, I guess there's a theory about language acquisition through, you know, exposure, but I still think that can be quite tiring and possibly unrealistic, and could make your job a lot harder. And you can still give them plenty of speaking practice without insisting it's always in English, because that could really frustrate them, and you don't want frustrated teenagers, because you've got already an uphill battle getting them to do the task that you want. So getting them talking, I mean, I think this is a list that you would say that if you read around, you know, motivating teenagers, getting them to be involved, this would be a list that you generally find. They've got to be curious. I mean, how can we get them immediately, you know, paying attention to the subject? Can we show them a picture? Could you give them a provocative statement? Could you play them some music? And I'm sure you've got your ideas there. This is a webinar, so I'm not in a conference or workshop situation, but if I were, I would put it to you in the audience and say, look, what kind of little techniques do you do? You know, I think that's the great thing about, you know, being on Facebook or on teaching communities, to share ideas. There must be some really fantastic things you do to get the kids curious. And once they're curious, you've got their attention. And when you've got their attention, you can start to give them the language they need. That's not, you know, that's not breaking news for anybody, but getting them curious is very important. And you need to involve them as well. That second one there, you know, if they're not involved, it's just another academic lesson, writing things down, go away and remember it. And we've got to involve them. Are your instructions clear? I mean, maybe you've got a really great activity to get them speaking, but maybe they just don't feel it's clear what they have to do. So maybe don't make it too involved. And of course, from speaking activities, there could be very controlled ones, like very, very controlled pair work activities to just practice a structure, to the more open, less controlled, free speaking fluency practice, where we're not involved in too much correction. We just want them to be using the language and feeling confident and building up a sort of, I suppose, a memory muscle for speaking. But make the instructions really clear and ask the students to tell you back, even if it's in their own language. So, Michael, what do we have to do again? Could you tell us again? Oh, Michael, you weren't paying attention. Right, well, okay, so Mary, you tell Michael and the rest of us, what is it we have to do here? We have to do this, okay, and then what? Okay, good. So everyone, don't move on until we've really asked the class, to tell you, right, we've got it, we know what we're doing. And make the outcome clear. Let them know, and if you don't know, you should, why we're doing this. What is the point? Is it to express our opinions? Are we trying to reach a decision from a problem-solving activity? Or, is it just for practice, but in a situation where we're practicing functions like, ordering food in a restaurant or buying tickets for travel? The outcome, why are we doing this? The last thing that you would want would be for the students to think, we're just doing this because we're in a class and that's what the teacher's telling us. I mean, that's kind of true, but can we do anything else to really make it a realistic and purposeful outcome? Rapport. Now by that, what I mean is, if you're a teacher that's very authoritarian and you say, right, number 2, let's start speaking, you speak to him, and you, okay, we need to, let's hope we're building up a good classroom environment. I mean, you probably are, but are you building up a rapport with your students where they feel comfortable talking to each other and talking to you? Maybe some of the group work is talking back to you as a plenary, as just a group chat. If you're not passionate about the subject, or you don't make them feel relaxed, or you feel that are they afraid of you in some way, how can you kind of soften the environment? How can you make them feel comfortable? But it's got to feel relevant, and eventually, sooner or later, the topic has got to be personalized. It's all very well talking about the environment or fashion or food, but of course you'll find in Sprint, this material we'll look at later, and all materials and your own lessons have to be geared towards what's in it for me. The most popular topic in the curriculum across every country in English language teaching is yourself, myself, me, especially teenagers. It's just about their world. So all right, fashion, food, environment, what about me? What about my world? And we've got to make it, hand over the topic and the language for them. And when it's personalized, it becomes more meaningful. They need the language to do it. Are you giving them enough language? Have they really understood the lesson? Should you go back over it before they start speaking? It may feel like the right thing to do, to go into a speaking activity, but if they're not ready, let's not do it. Let's go back and check. This is all about supporting them, and of course, knowing enough about the subject or the topic to even talk about it at all. So make the goals clear, make the instructions clear, and make the task meaningful and purposeful. Let's not make it something academic because the course book tells us to. What could you do? How could you find some things online, or some pictures or videos? We'll do some of that too today. To bring life, bring a new dimension to the course book. The Sprint course has all sorts of lovely digital video components and things, but what can you do, and what can they do to go outside the classroom, literally and virtually, to bring things to that topic, to do whatever you can do to make it real? And I know it's hard and it takes preparation, but you know that it's worth it. I think the teachers' books for this course and other courses I've seen at Ellie are fantastic, but at the end of the day, you've still got to tailor make it to your students, haven't you? And that means collaborating with them, saying, hey guys, we're doing something tomorrow on cinema. Who knows some good blogs about? You got a good blog? Okay, you bring the link in tomorrow. There's a good video clip. Okay, bring that in. What's your favorite trailer? And let them bring the material to you. You're planning ahead. You know what's coming up in the weeks ahead. Work together, and I think that also builds the rapport with your students. So personalizing it and supporting them. Enough language, enough knowledge, and not correcting them too much. Really, we know there's a time and place for correcting our students, and if we're always jumping on them every mistake, we're only going to do that really if we're seeing if they've understood and could correctly use the grammar you've been teaching maybe. But really, for fluency practice, we just want to keep them going. And of course, with pair work or little groups of 3 chatting in certain controlled activities, you can go around monitoring, and it's not going to be a perfect situation, but you do have to make sure that everyone's got a chance to speak rather than just one person at a time, and that's going to be, you know, kind of dull and also stressful for those who are speaking on their own. And that's why I'm not so keen on reading aloud as a speaking activity. If you get students to read aloud, well, I don't think it really helps their pronunciation. They feel nervous, so it's not their best possible performance. I think if we think about it, reading out loud is not something that we ever do in life unless you're a teacher or a religious leader or a politician. And even those people, like you, a teacher, if you were asked to read out loud to an audience, how would you feel? And if you did have to do it, you'd prepare first. So if you must ask your students to read out loud and you think it's a speaking activity, I'm doubtful that it's actually really realistic in the real world, or even a good way to make them feel comfortable about speaking. But people can disagree with me there, but examine whether reading aloud really works for all of your students, not just the ones who are confident. Let's see. But support them, make them feel comfortable, and monitor them and see, you know, where individual students may need more help. Now in Sprint you have a 4-level course which goes from A1 to B1, and we're going to look at some ideas on how we can get them talking with the topics and the activities that come up in Sprint. From the list there you can see some of the main features of the course that you would see. Obviously a full curriculum of grammar and integrated skills, but there is an emphasis in the course on communication, which is why I've chosen speaking skills today, using the language in as many meaningful contexts as possible, and very teen-centered, so all the topics are very much geared towards not just the sort of things that teenagers like, you know, music and food and fashion and whatever, but also real teenagers and characters and videos in the course itself to see real kids talking about it, so your students can identify easily with the material and the kids that are in the material. 21st century skills, particularly critical thinking, comes up from time to time throughout the units, and as you often find in LE Publishing's materials, whether they're readers or whether they are the different ages and levels of course books, culture and other subjects in English occur all the time, and that's brilliant because that's exactly what we need. CLIL, if you're not familiar with that term, is content and language integrated learning. CLIL, that's where you have the language and also a subject from the curriculum like maths or science or geography, biology, and you take some of the language, the meta language from those subjects, and the students are talking or speaking or writing or reading about that particular topic. And of course that makes a lot of sense. You know, from an early time in the morning until the afternoon, the students spend every day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, working amongst different topics and different interdisciplinary subjects, and why not use those in our English curriculum? That's meaningful, that's purposeful, and later they could well go on to study in English and need basic study skills. So instead of just reading about day-to-day topics, it's really valuable, and more so, that students encounter and start to read about and communicate with the content and language integrated. So that's CLIL. Quickly, the components for Sprint, and you can go online to the website at LE, that's leonline.com, and you can see that there's a student's book, workbook, teacher's book with various components and resources there. I particularly like the multi-ROM, which is a test maker. That means that you've got a disk there where you can see different tests on Word, and you can adapt those texts to become tests. There's a nice little tongue twister for you, and then you can adapt those and print them out. So there's different kinds of revision and worksheet tests, and the book is digital. You put a code into the website and you can contact us for more details there, and then you can activate your digital book, and then you can have all the different audio visual elements that go with it, and we'll look at some of those videos too. The 4 levels each have 8 units, and there are 10 pages in a unit, so you've got a full balanced diet of grammar and skills and all sorts of different components to work with there, and you have a double language input, so similar to other courses at this age group, Ellie will give you reading and audio sort of dialogue input to introduce the language and get the theme working, activate the vocabulary and take the skills from there. And then there are competencies, which is when we talk about CLIL, so the other subjects from the curriculum brought into your English classroom here. Culture and festivals features, and not just the English speaking world but other countries where English is spoken but perhaps not as a mother tongue, and that's an opportunity for students to compare festivals, traditions, values different from their own, which is a really important skill as we teach young learners and young adults to go out into the world, not believing that their way is the only way, but their way is one of many ways, and diversity and tolerance was never more important. And where are they going to learn that kind of thing? I mean, are they going to learn that in all the other lessons in the curriculum? I think English, if we keep remembering that it's not a subject, it's not just a language, it's a communication skill, and communicating in English is going to involve working or communicating somehow internationally, even if it's just social media, or it could be video calls, it could be gaming online, which is what a lot of teenagers do, and a lot of that's in English. And when you do that, even if people have great English, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to all get on well or even agree, because you may come from a different viewpoint because of your culture. So I think it's really important that books like Sprint do cover cultural aspects, and that's not new. I think most teachers are aware of this, but where are you going to find the material? And if you look at some of the examples today, we can see how to make the most of that, and in this particular topic, get those students talking. Videos are a great way of doing that. There's drama readers in the first two levels, and in the word bank in the first two levels there are nice little picture dictionaries which you can use. But I would put up a picture, you know, and the kids come into the class, they could be settling down and throwing things about and talking, and then they might just see this picture when they come in, right? And I think we know that a visual of some sort is going to get the attention, and they could be settling down and you're doing nothing, you're just waiting to let them get ready, and they'll be looking at this board, your whiteboard maybe, or even just a big picture you've printed out. This comes from Sprint. There you go, just a quick glance at the unit, but there's a typical unit, nice design, lots of things going on. You can see some, you know, some speaking and writing, some warm-ups. Okay, we'll come back to that. But I've just taken the picture, and you can ask the students to, what's going on here? You know, is he happy? And what is it? Oh, they're a family, really. What's he doing? He's eating. Is he eating? Maybe. What's she doing? Sister, friend, whatever. She's cleaning. Oh, so he's cleaning too. Right, so you're eliciting from the picture. Look at the parents. I like that. So it's quite a message, isn't it? You know, what are the parents doing? Nothing. So I'd quickly want to kind of, you know, poke my audience, poke my teenagers' audience, to sort of realize that what's going on here. If we were in a group now together, you'd be shouting ideas, I hope. But what we'd get is a situation where the kids are doing their chores, all right, and the parents are going, you see, I'm going to get my kids to do it, because you've got to learn to do your chores. And then what do you do next? Well, you would, I guess, you could elicit from the group, let's brainstorm, give them a few minutes, English or your local language, I don't care. What I want at this point is to get them activated with the topic. They're not going to talk about it until they've got the language. So I want to brainstorm the different chores. But instead of just asking them by showing them like a unit where they're starting to look all over the page and think, oh my goodness, there's a lot of work we're going to do today. Picture. What's happening? Chores. Right, guys, I want, who's got 10? 10. First person to get 10 gets a sticker, whatever your rewards are. Anyway, brainstorm all the different chores, doing the dishes, cleaning the floor, cleaning windows, or he's cleaning the table, you know, clearing up after dinner. And then you could do all sorts with that. Let's see, in the book, there's pair work to sort of do the same kind of brainstorming, and then they have to order some of their worst chores, the ones they'd rather do, or the ones that they have to do at home. So lots of opportunity there to explore that topic. This is obviously something to do with housework in the USA, and there's some listing there to see how a particular teenager does his chores and how he feels about them. Let's take a closer look here. In the pair work there, you ask each other the following questions about the habits of your family. Okay, so back to personalizing it. And you've got to have an opinion about this. I mean, you know, everybody hates it, and everyone would have a preference if they had to do one chore over another. Would you rather wash the car, or would you rather put out the bin and scrape away all the food? Whatever. And then they've got habits and chores there, and you've got writing. But I often think with writing activities, so if you write an email to a foreign friend, tell him about a typical family life in your country. But I could make that into a speaking activity. You don't have to make that writing. You could make it you could make a scripted Skype call or a video call on WhatsApp. So instead of writing an email there, I would adapt that perhaps, and then make with my partner, they have to create a little chat, or maybe some prompts. If it's a strong class, maybe they could do a sort of pretend call with each other over a video call or a phone call, just to talk about their chores. Oh, what have you got to do tonight? Oh, I've got to hoover the stairs. I've got to do the dusting. You know, so I think what I'm saying is, you know, Sprint here is giving you lots of ideas, but we don't have to stick with not just the same order of the task, but we can actually adapt them any way we see fit. I love this. In Sprint, you've got this thing called Kids at Work, if you see that. And it says here, Video Sprint. Interview a member of your family, ask how many hours they dedicate to work, how many to domestic chores, and how many to leisure. And then sprint ahead, research the chores that children performed in your country in the past. I mean, there's quite a lot going on there. And earlier in the unit, there are things about, you know, kids in the past and what they had to do, but taking the kids some smartphones and asking them to go home and do some interviews. Now those interviews could be in English, I suppose. If the parents have some English, that could be a good way to connect your school work with home. That's something we're always trying to do, isn't it? Or you could they could do it in their local language, and then they could sort of play it back to the class and translate it like they're interpreting, you know. So they could do, you know, hey Dad, what chores do you do? Well, you know, son, I do all the chores in this house. Your mother does nothing. You know, joking. We'll come to this in a second. And then they could maybe translate it, or if they have English in the house, they could try that too. And if the parents make mistakes, then you could get the class to correct the mistakes. I mean, it doesn't matter, does it? The main thing is we want them involved as much as possible, and here's a great way to do it. Now, I'm aware that some schools have strict rules about mobile phones and having them brought in, but maybe they could record things and send you the videos to play. There's always ways around it, and if you need some help on using mobile phones inside and outside the classroom, email me. Happy to help. Email is at the end of this session. Here we go. Here's a few characters here. You can do some reading here. Chloe, Grace, who's 14. You see the age group here for Sprint users. Joey, who's 16. Wayne. Look at Wayne here. We have constant arguments at home about chores. Surely not. Our parents ask, whose turn is it to load or unload the washing machine? My brother and I shout, yours! Surprise, surprise. And our parents say it's certainly not theirs, so we do it all together. What a happy house. Household chores. Come on, what a great topic. You know, what I did here, this is a little picture I found online. This is not in Sprint, but all these things you've seen so far, they are in Sprint, all right? But then think widely on the topic. You know, you're preparing your lesson, you're thinking about chores. Think, you know, what would make this really lively, interesting, global, thought-provoking? And I thought, infographics. This is an infographic in a way. It's a simple one, because not only do we have a thing, we have a thing about chores. We don't like to do them. Some people do. I know some people who actually like ironing, and they run their own business because we don't like ironing, so we send it to them. But you burn calories. We know this. Housework keeps you fit. In fact, because we do less housework than maybe 50 years ago, because we now have labor-saving devices and technology, that's why we're all getting fatter. We should do more housework and homework. So look at that. Now I don't know if it's true, okay, which is another thing about the internet. One person finds one infographic, another student finds another, and they can compare facts. That can't be true, you know. So at least they're saying something. 90 calories if you scrub the shower for 15 minutes. That's not bad, is it? Redecorating, moving furniture. Oh yeah, 100+ calories if you move furniture for 15 minutes. Okay, so it could cause some problems at home there. 153 calories if you mop for an hour. So teachers, get mopping. Who mops for an hour? Anyway, what I like about this picture, it's non-gender. Look at these little pink characters. But then I thought, why don't we wind up the students? Now here's a warning. I'm going to play you a video here. So yeah, I thought there must be some videos out there about chores. And then I thought, if I want to get them speaking, I want to really wind them up with something provocative. Now forgive me out there if you think that I believe in this video. I don't. But if you go back into the 50s and 60s films on YouTube, you can find some very, very interesting things to talk about. Because here, I'm just going to flip my screen, I hope, here to play this clip on women and housework in the past. Now, let's just watch it and see if I can show you what I mean by making it into a speaking activity. Let's play it now, okay?
Here's to the ladies, the fair and the weak. Fair they are, we'll all admit, but who dares call them weak? Our modern girls play as hard and with as much vitality and stamina as any man. How do they do it? Where do they find all that energy, that seemingly inexhaustible store of pep and ginger? What is that whipcord resilience that lets the weaker sex play half the night, then bob up clear-eyed, ready for the next morning's work? This frail creature strikes her typewriter keys about 40,000 times a day, spaces 7,000 times, shifts to capitals and returns the carriage more than 1,000 times each. Altogether, a few ounces at a time, she exerts more than 5 tons of pressure on her dainty fingertips in one day's work. And any way you look at it, women's work is not for sissies. Most men would have a hard time of it if they were to change jobs with wife, mother, or girlfriend. The homemaker walks miles every day, from sink to icebox, from cupboard to stove, and from kitchen to dining table. Let's use some very special photography to compress the whole job of preparing a meal into a few seconds of time, to see how many steps it really takes to get dinner on the table. Remember, this is a hurry-up picture of just one meal out of more than 1,000. Is that what you'd call a blitz meal? Even an efficiency expert would be staggered by the amount of chasing around and indoor road work that the little woman takes as a matter of course. There's the stair climbing event, for example, usually accomplished full tilt and with an armload of brooms, mops, blankets, and sundry household paraphernalia. Here's another hurry-up picture of the clinging vine whizzing through a day's program that would leave the average mountaineer gasping for breath. Each trip upstairs is the equivalent of lifting her own weight 12 feet. And at the rate of 20 trips a day, that's lifting about 12 tons of weight. Who said weaker sex? Ironing is another kind of work that's a lot of little jobs all rolled into one. Just to iron one of hubby's shirts, for instance, the iron may have to be lifted 20 or 30 times. And since a flat iron weighs about as much as a brick, a day's ironing actually uses just about as much muscle as bricklaying. Flattening a towel or wielding a trowel. Even Stephen lifted 20 or
Okay,
30
you get the
times.
idea. You get the idea. This video and its message is not the opinion of me or Ellie Publishing, okay? And it's amazing, isn't it, what the past reveals? But hey, it is provocative. I picked it deliberately because, you know, you're going to get a reaction, aren't you? If you show this kind of thing in the class. Of course we don't believe this now, but you can talk about gender politics, gender issues in the house, you know, who does what in the household. And of course there are some terrible things that you see in old advice information films. Have a look online. If you need some, just email me. They are amazing. And hey, we think we're so modern. Some of the things we're saying now on YouTube or on information films could be hilarious and inappropriate 50 years from now to the future audiences. So you know, that's how it is. Let me just get back to my presentation here. Yeah, so provocative thought, definitely going to get them talking, get a reaction, and my point was really, this is another way of bringing a topic to life and stepping outside the course book before going back in. And you know, look at this, women still do the majority of the housework, with just 7% of couples sharing their duties equally. Study finds a study of 8,500 couples found 93% of women do most of the chores, and all of you out there are nodding or shaking your head depending on your gender, if in fact we are to be binary in this conversation. But again, it's out there. It may be true, it may not be true. I suspect this is true, and then you've got a discussion there. You could do surveys. The students could go home and start asking different friends, asking, you know, pulling together information about the classroom and what they have discovered about. Now that's really good. Now there's so much there that's going on. There's so many different ways that we've got them speaking, because every time you've done something like this, shown a provocative video or looked at some provocative new facts. By the way, the Daily Mail in Britain is a great paper to find stuff like this, because it just is. I'm not saying it's a great newspaper, I'm just saying it's a great source of inflammatory opinion and facts, and there's a link there you can use for that one. So if you think of a topic and you look on the Daily Mail, you'll find all sorts of sort of spectacular, sensationalist tabloid reactions, and sometimes that's all it takes. You just put this headline up as the kids come into the class and think of that instead of the picture, and then pull out the language and, you know, and see where it goes. That's the other thing. Be flexible. How do we know where that lesson could go? And if it really works and they're really interested, I think most of you out there would agree, let's keep going. You know, forget the rest of the lesson. This is really going. They'll be really motivated for the next time that they come in, I hope. And maybe it'll go wrong, in which case don't do this one again. But I hope you see that what I'm doing here is taking a regular topic, housework, rooms around the house, and daily chores, which is in the curriculum, fairly low down, I think, in the beginner elementary levels. And here's a way of making it really real and interesting. Now, in the first two levels of Sprint, you've got this lovely word bank. Now, I don't have time, and it wouldn't be very interesting to show you lots of pages, but imagine lots of pages with different topics with these little mini dictionary things. I love these, because there's going to be another webinar on using pictures like this and other different visuals, on a webinar about using pictures in the classroom in general. It's one of my favorite areas, and I think for all teachers we can agree there's so many ways we can get the kids talking about pictures. Now here, for example, you could elicit from that early part of the lesson, you could elicit the different chores, and then maybe show some pictures without the words here. You could maybe take pictures from the book, or you could go to the interactive digital book and crop them. You know, there's lots of ways to get the pictures off the screen or the page and put them up and see if the students can identify them and put the words. Or one idea here is you could maybe choose, let's say 6, maybe 9 pictures from here, and then hide them. Boom, there they are, gone. And then the kids have to, you know, remember as many as they can. Oh, there was a guy putting out plates. Was he laying the table? Yeah, laying the table. There was somebody ironing. Yeah, so they could do a memory thing there and start to let them think about that one, because you've got their attention. You could gamify it. Now that's a good thing, isn't it? Take 6 of the pictures from any word bank and Sprint. Level 1 and level 2, remember. Different topics, not just the chores. There's all sorts of things, food and transport and jobs, you know, the usual. But you could pick 6 or 12 of those pictures, make a little worksheet, and make some dice. I mean, you could make spinners. If you don't know how to make a spinner, you could Google it, or you can ask me. But it's like you make a spinner with card, 6 sides. Put something like a matchstick without the match, so safe, or a stick, and then you put elastic bands and spin it. Alright, I'll show you a picture someday. Spinner, dice, and then you've got a game, so you have to, you know, say I like and I don't like. Throw a 3. 3 is washing up, I don't like washing up. Or you could make little pictures of he, she, it, they, and then they throw the dice. It's a 3. maybe that's hang out the laundry. He hangs out the laundry. In other words, making a pronoun, personal pronoun spinner or dice, or using pictures and then using the dice to tell you which particular chore they have to do. There's one there, I think there's lists of jobs, so you could throw a dice and it's a 5, and it's number 5 is the policeman, and you throw another dice and it's 2, and it's loading the dishwasher, so the policeman is loading the dishwasher. It doesn't matter, you know, but that's a controlled activity where you've got, you know, a way of them not being told by you, but each telling each other in a game about the pictures. That's kind of nice. There are no dice included with the Sprint course, but they are available probably in your local supermarket, and they're quite cheap. So here's another example of looking at a unit and thinking, what could I do here? What's going on here? All right, so this is a good example from Sprint on how it's called Build Your Competencies, which is really the sort of other subjects and the skills we want to use with English around other subjects in English. Here we have water, water everywhere. And that comes from the expression water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. That's when you're stuck out in a lifeboat in the middle of the ocean on your own, as you do, and there's water everywhere, not a drop to drink. And there you have a text, and you've got a warm up, and we're thinking about different ways of using water, and that's going to move nicely through a nice little lesson plan there of some scaffolded new language. We're going to read about how much water we use, then we're going to do some comprehension, and then we're going to do some listening, and then moving into speaking and writing. And that's a really nice, neat lesson plan there. And of course, with my favorite part, kids at work, where you can do some video work at home to, you know, make it a bit more interesting and take that language further outside the classroom. But what have I done here? What I would do, this is the way I would do it, is again, I don't want to see all that. That's just going to be overwhelming for my kids. I would do that. See, the picture came from the top there, the top middle. I'd take the picture, and they go, what's this? It's a tap. All right. What's coming out the tap? Water. Okay. And then brainstorm before you show them anything here. Brainstorm from the students. Right, how much water do you think how many different ways are there to use water at home, you know? Right guys, you've got 5 minutes, brainstorm. I wouldn't care if it was English or not at this point, because I'm not trying to test their knowledge in English about water usage. That's going to come through reading about it. I want them to be activated and feel like this is an easy part of the lesson, because there's going to be plenty of challenges coming anyway with the grammar and the vocab and some skills work. Just get them to see a picture and then think, brainstorm, how many different ways, and then say, right, good one, yeah, what have we got over there? Okay, having a bath. Yeah, what about you guys? Shower. Yeah, good one. Shower. Writing it up on the board. Shower. Gardening, watering the plants. Yeah, so you get all the ideas, and then maybe you get them to copy that down. Think, any more? Okay, giving the dog water. Okay, and your pets. Okay, let's get the pets into one. Not all the animals. Pets, water. Great. Now we've got a list. Let's imagine how much water do they get? The plants, the dog, you showering, and then start to figure out before we read it, because in this text they're going to read, I know you can't read that right now, but if you get Sprint you can, and then you'll see there's some statistics there. And again, we could go outside the course and Google, get the kids to, I mean, that's what they love doing. They Google stuff all the time. Ask them, maybe even as a flipped classroom activity, so they come in and talk about what they already know, having brainstormed the use of water in the house, to then say, right, okay, we'll go home and figure out how much people use maybe in the whole country or the whole world. And that's the statistics like that are really not only shocking but thought-provoking and get kids talking. So they're not sort of worried about, you know, their English too much. They just probably, I hope, feel excited to convey how shocking or spectacular the information is. And that's what I mean about taking a good lesson plan like this with a nice balance of text input and practice, and then flesh it out with the real world. I took the pictures from the unit there, something I like to do quite often, so I'll just skip back to the unit. You can see at the top there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pictures, and I put them here. Oh, there must be 6, sorry. And I could make them just, that could be a memory game. If they see this for 30 seconds, guys, okay, right, Name the 6 pictures. Anybody? 2 minutes. You. Okay, just not me. You. Write them down quickly. And then you start to think, oh, there was a kid having a bath, there's somebody washing the food, and some people there collecting water in a country, where could it be? And there we are, again, using visuals to get them to sort of activate the language and start to think about what we're going to do with it. And here we're talking about how much water we use. So there's a nice little unit there, and it's kind of practical. You know, there's a lot of conversation now, a lot of discussion out there, isn't there, between, you know, about the environment, not wasting things, not wasting water, you know. And of course an activity could be to present to the class in little mini groups ways that they could save water, you know, or presenting their facts and figures about water. So little mini presentations, but not one poor child on their own to the class. Let them work together collaboratively as a group, maybe. That would be a supportive way. I mean, like I said, I mean, speaking activities can vary. It isn't just about having a little conversation. We need to be able to present in English, or we may need to be able to analyze and think in like a meeting, not just having a conversation. So these are the kind of study skills or even workplace skills that we are preparing our students for later. There's the text. You can read that at your leisure if you want to pause this and read it. Statistics on water usage. You can argue and disagree. Great, that's what I want. If a student says to me, that's not true, I think we do more. Good, tell me. Tell me in English. All right. And there we are, leading that lesson into speaking and writing. Imagine you're on holiday, that's part 6, writing, at an eco-friendly resort that suggests basic rules for saving water. So you're not at home now, you're at a resort. I mean, think of the wastage that goes on holiday. Write an email, or you could make it a mini presentation. Where you are, what's the weather, what are the steps you can do to reduce water? And there is a video activity. At home, make a video interview with a member of your family about his daily use of drinking water, or maybe people in the neighborhood. All right. So again, input, practice, and then personalizing it and globalizing the topic. Get them speaking. There's the writing thing there and the video. Now, we can't talk about speaking activities without mentioning drama, and I know a lot of teachers who use drama a lot with their teenage students and young adults, not just in primary. And when I say a lot, it sounds like you might be thinking, well, yeah, I do drama, Andy, but some really lean on drama heavily. And I was thinking about this for this seminar, and there are lots of reasons. There are more than 12, in fact, but here are the 12 that generally make drama essential at various points in your class. I don't mean just doing a whole play, it could be role play, but it's fun and it's a nice release from the day-to-day grind of getting through grammar and units in a course book. So how can we make drama happen in the classroom? It involves the students, and of course drama involves conversation, and it's not just conversation, but it's structured, so they can lean on the lines, can't they? The students can remember their lines, which is memorizing English. So memorizing chunks of language is really good, and it's in a context as well, and they have to express themselves, and you can be, you know, a director, or the other students are directors in their little mini plays, for example, and you don't want them saying stop thief, this is the police. You know, you want them to go, stop, this is the police, put your hands up and lie down, whatever. And we want them to be expressing themselves, and intonation and the rhythm patterns of pronunciation. Fantastic. It's hard to do that in a course book, so let the course book feed you some ideas, which we'll come to after this slide. But the context is going to be great. That's what you want. You learn some lines in a small play, and the context will anchor that into their memories too. So it's very memorable. And by rehearsing and rehearsing, the repetition of language won't be boring. It'll be very welcome, and they can hear those lines again and again, and that's key, isn't it? Repeating language, but finding meaningful and exciting ways to do it without getting bored. Movement, senses, that's great. Using all of our senses, touch and actions and being part of a scene is going to be really good for the memory, and this whole kinesthetic audio-visual multi-sensory approach is perfect. And you're working as a group, aren't you? You're either in groups or you're in a whole class to produce a play or whatever, or a review or a show or little sketches. Maybe you've adapted sketches out of the topic, you know, that you've been doing, and that unites the class. Using drama really brings the class together, and really gives them a chance to hide a little bit behind roles. I mean, when I was a teacher, even with adults, sometimes I would give them roles to play, but not, you know, role play, but roles to be. You know, you are an angry customer and you are a very rude shopkeeper, and you can see amazing things when the students can hide behind those roles, particularly if they're shy and may not really want to talk about their own life. So drama is a great way to disguise the language that they can use in speaking skills, hiding behind a role. And of course it can address mixed abilities. Students then have a chance to speak when they might not normally want to, and maybe the nature of the lines they're given, and you can, you know, coordinate that. They have perhaps more language to produce than they normally would be able to. So, you know, get to know drama more and try little bits. Don't try and be too ambitious. Look it up. And the sense of achievement is fantastic when students take part in a play or a sketch, and if they perform it for an audience, that's even better. But I don't think that you have to do have an audience and a show for everything you do in drama. What I'm saying is all these elements here that I've listed, and there are more, really can boost the speaking skills and the confidence and the unity of your classes. So in your CPD, your continuing professional development or training or self-training, look it up. Look up ideas for drama in English language teaching, or drama in ELT, or drama in English classes. There's loads of ideas out there, videos as well, and blogs and articles for magazines. It's really, really good out there for ideas. And then just think, how could that work with my next topic? In Sprint, in the first two levels, there is a graded drama reader. Here we have The Wizard of Oz, and there you have a narrator and the characters, and you can take your time to prepare this. This could be just something you do as little role plays, or you could do a full-on show, you know. Wonderful Wizard of Oz. There you go. How would you do the tornado scene? They might like to do that. It could smash up the classroom. No, just joking. There you go. So they've got scripts there. And, you know, another thing you could do is when you look at graded readers, Ellie have fantastic graded readers. Some of them are drama-based, but whenever there's a great set of dialogue in one of the readers, you can ask the students to recreate that as a script, especially if you choose one that's got a topic related to a topic. Let's say you're doing crime and they pick out a Sherlock Holmes reader, and they could identify some really good dialogue there and role play that. That's drama, and it's speaking, and you know, they've seen enough of those sorts of films or TV shows to know what they really have to do in behavior, so they can really get involved and have some fun. That's what we want, isn't it? Try and make some of this fun. The other graded reader in level 2, I think it is, for Sprint, is the Canterville Ghost. So there's an old favourite there. Now I'm going to try and show you a video from the Sprint coursebook here. This is on anti-bullying, which is a pretty important and again thought-provoking topic. If you look at the video activities in Sprint 3, there are different ones there. I found one here from Prince William about his anti-bullying campaign, with activities that can be either gap fill or speaking. What's this here? We've got gap fill here. Watch the video. This is number 4. Watch the video, read the sentences and decide if they're true or false. Well, don't worry, we don't have to do that, but what I will do is try and find the video in a different screen here, and oh look, after you watch, I think we'll learn in the video when I play it now why they are holding up little cutouts of hands. And the activity there would be to create your own list of 5 people you would turn to if you're being bullied. So let's just see how I can bring that up. I go out of that provocative video. I go to my Be Smart, which is the digital version of the book, Sprint, and I go over here and I find that I have a unit here called an anti-bullying Prince, and because it's an interactive book here, and if you are unclear how to use or get your interactive book, contact me or the team at the end of this webinar and we'll help you. But it's a code in your book that you put into a website. And I'm going to show you here quickly Prince William talking about his anti-bullying campaigns. Here we go.
As a dad of 2, Prince William can still get away with a casual high five. This wasn't just about connecting with the kids at this school in West London, but supporting a charity set up in his mother's name. The Diana Award want all children to find 5 people they can turn to if they're in trouble. They already have 16,000 anti-bullying ambassadors in schools across the country. Like Daniel, only 11, he was picked on for 3 years.
First of all, he'd call me a really bad name, and then he'd start punching me and kicking me, and it really wasn't nice. It hurt a lot. I'd usually come home with about 3 bruises on my shin because he was kicking me that hard.
So I would still do the supporting, make sure they were okay, but equally, as this young man said here, I would try and confront to re-educate where I could so it wouldn't hurt someone else.
This was as much a chance for the Duke to join in as learn about what's being done to help young people. In a recent survey, the charity found that 35% of pupils don't tell anyone about bullying, with 59% saying it made them think about skipping school. Millie was mainly bullied online.
I bunked off school and I'd make up reasons why I didn't go in. You still can't escape it. It's still there. Every time you turn your phone on, every time you check, you know, a certain messenger or something, there's always going to be something on there. And as much as you can use the block button, which is such a great tool, it doesn't quite, you know, stop everything. There's always another way that they can get to you.
Sharing your problems with Prince William may not feel like the most natural environment to talk about the issue of bullying, but the charity want to make sure that young people feel empowered to talk about their problems and don't just suffer in silence. The Diana Award want more pupils to join their anti-bullying programme, but say it's not about letting teachers off the hook.
A lot of times teachers don't know what to do when it comes to cyberbullying, for example, or they think, oh, well, it's not happening, it's outside of school, we don't know what to do. This time we're giving the power to young people, but also supporting teachers in making the school a safe place.
There was no surprise who the Prince picked as his support network. His wife, brother, father and grandparents.
I want to put my dog in here as well.
And his dog Lupo. But this was also his chance to again make his mark on this charity continuing his mother's legacy. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News.
Right, so there you go. Prince William helping you there. It's kind of nice to know. It's interesting to see one of his friends he'll talk to if he needs help with any bullying would be his grandmother, the Queen of England. Brilliant. While we're on the subject of videos, I just want to show you another one. Just a little part of this one, not the whole thing, but just give you an idea that there are a lot of videos in Sprint which I really like. That's also a great one as an example of authentic English. You know, we really want the young adults to be exposed to real authentic English as well, don't we, as well as the structured stuff too. There are structured videos with characters in Sprint, but now and again it's important that they are exposed to real English here. There are culture videos as well, and here there are different English speaking world topics. If I were to go to my this is interesting here, if you go to the website for Ellie Online and you have a code and you can register and see the videos for yourself in the teacher resources area. So it's ellieonline.com and you register, and then you can see the students area and a teachers area. And if I click on the teachers area and just go and have a look here, I select English, I look for Sprint and I find it, and I click on Sprint and I go to teachers area, I log in, you can't see my password, haha, and then I will see some of the culture videos, and this takes you actually to a direct link on the YouTube channel for Ellie, which is Ellie Multimedia, I believe. So it jumps me straight onto YouTube and I can see a list of all the different cultural videos from Ellie Multimedia. There you are. Cricket. Yeah, get the kids to explain cricket That'd be brilliant. London transport. English is a global language, one of my favourite topics. Giant's Causeway in Ireland. Here's one in California. You can see Aboriginals, Canada, Windsor Castle. Brilliant. Now look at them. They're only 2 or 3 minutes. Fantastic. Here's one on California. What does that sound like? Let's have a look.
California, in the southwest of the United States of America, is situated on the Pacific Ocean. It is a very long state and includes more than 1,300 kilometers of beautiful coastline. San Francisco. San Francisco was one of the small towns at the center of the gold rush. In fact, between 1848 and 1855, the number of people living here grew from only 200 to more than 36,000.
I've been there once. Want to go back. So, all right. So there's just a quick example of the culture videos that are on offer with the Sprint course. Let me just find my place. We're just going to finish now with some examples of the controlled practice you can do with the speaking for Sprint. But here are the as I say, the culture videos, and you can go on YouTube at the Ellie Multimedia YouTube channel and find them there, or go via the ellieonline.com website. A poem to remember. There's 2 of these actually. They're quite sweet. You know, reciting a poem, that's a speaking activity. Can you remember any poems you remembered from when you learned English? That's really nice. This one is the Roald Dahl one, Pure Imagination, and you can actually teach the students to remember that, or you can go on Spotify and find that, because Gene Wilder sings it in the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Poetry. It's kind of drama too, isn't it? Comparing cultures. I was saying earlier that it's important that the students are exposed to culture and different cultures, and then compare it to their own. That's what we want them to do, is to kind of be able to see what is going on here in teen life in Britain and school, but how is it for you in your school, and what do you do for lunch, and what about uniforms? So these things are important to discuss as well, and get them to be thinking about other cultures. Here's one on, what's that, regions, the name of your region, nationalities, stereotypes even. That's a very good topic to talk about. Or even here, your favorite recipes or national dishes. And wherever I go, and I'm very lucky to travel so much, people always want to tell me about the food and how to make it. So let's do this in English too. I mean, you do this already, but Sprint is giving you the platform and the vehicle for the language to present this or to discuss it. Critical thinking is a vital part of 21st century skills now, so we want the kids to examine what they're reading, reflect and evaluate the content for themselves. And this is just a couple of examples here from the workbooks at Sprint. There's some very nice texts, and here some surveys and quizzes in the workbooks. The workbooks are not just exercises. There's some really good extra text and listenings to do for the students. You can use them in the classroom. It doesn't have to be homework. There's one on manners around the world. Again, cultural values. One person's bad manners is another person's totally fine. And this I thought was fantastic. This is an article, you know, it's in the workbook, and so many teachers just give the workbook out as extra, but this is a fantastic text about a guy called Daniel Kish, who's very famous. There are some TED Talks by him and a couple of videos on how he uses clicks in his mouth. He's blind, and he uses clicks as like a sonar device, like a bat that uses sound to determine where things are and where he is. And actually, if you look online, there are some videos which I've taken some clips there, some little pictures to show. Daniel talks about this on YouTube in different ways, and documentaries. So again, an example there of finding a text at Sprint. It's great, it's very informative, and then or before get the kids to maybe talk about it, or even find the video, talk about the video, or do their own commentary. You could find a video there. I've got one here. Quickly, let's do this. Let's find Daniel. I did have this earlier. There he is. Here's Daniel talking about his life, clicking for sound to see where he is.
And now we know, by watching our students and by bat research and dolphin research, We know that echolocating with the environment using active signals such as clicking is an interactive
just a
process.
very quick glimpse there. You know, videos are so powerful and a great way to motivate the students to talk. How would they talk here? Well, they could discuss what they see. This is a well, it's quite a long documentary, so I would keep it quite short, 2 or 3 minutes maybe. And maybe they could choose their own parts of it and do their own commentary. Or, as you know, on YouTube, you can see the captions and the script. Get the script printed out and get them to maybe read out their commentary or do their own. So there are lots of ways to really get the kids speaking on videos related to the topics that you find even in the workbook. And I say even because a workbook is so often reduced to just a series of homework exercises, but it can be much more than that. And if you are interested in using film more in the classroom, beyond the usual activities that most people know about, contact me. There are so many free resources out there on using film to supplement your topic, to boost grammar, and I mean real videos that you can use and bring those lessons to life, and in this particular context, to get a reaction, to get the kids talking. Okay, so we've done videos, we've done a little bit of culture, we've done ways to exploit the workbooks and the course book, and I just want to finish here by saying, you know, it's important that we keep pronunciation, you know, as parallel to our speaking activities. There's no point speaking if you don't pronounce correctly, so Sprint will address in every unit elements of pronunciation. Look at that, what was that one there? That's the third person S, so is it speaks, or is it with a S, or is it remembers with a Z, or is it uses with an is? So that's a popular one, isn't it? And there's another popular one, different past simples, touched, borrowed, or fainted. So there we have a listening, and the students have to listen, and then, yeah, you've seen this, but it's important that those things do happen in the unit alongside any speaking activity as well. Pronunciation is like, I think, the 5th skill in many ways, or part B of speaking, which is all about fluency usually. If you're interested in pronunciation, I highly recommend you look at Mark Hancock's website with all sorts of articles and resources on teaching pronunciation. And I mention this because I think pronunciation is an area where it's often left in the background, and you know, teachers can be afraid of it for all sorts of reasons, but it's a vital element of teaching English. And if you are feeling a little bit guilty right now, don't feel guilty. Just get to know more resources like these and use the pronunciation activities in books like Sprint. Sprint will give you guided dialogues as well. So for example, here, instead of just letting the students make up a dialogue as pair work, this is very specific here. On the left, Harriet and William asks William if he has ever been abroad. William replies yes. Harriet asks where. William replies to Australia and New Zealand. So here they have to sort of look at this in the book and come up with a more natural dialogue based on these very careful prompts. And there's another one there on the right hand side. Structured dialogues, again, it's controlled, but maybe that's what we need at the beginning. And then we can move to freer practice here. This is often in exams, isn't it? Some of the Cambridge exams, you have to talk about pictures. So Sprint gives pictures to talk about purely for speaking practice, and then maybe you could, you know, get the students to bring in maybe copies, if not their real phone, to talk about their pictures in the topic you've been talking about. Let's go back to the chores. Take photographs of you doing the chores or video and talk about it. All right. So we're doing everything we can to bring the students' own real world into the classroom and let them feel that speaking is not just an activity to do in the class because you're a teacher, but because we want them to feel engaged and involved doing it. So that's all I can really tell you today about speaking skills with teens and young adults. And the key thing is to really make them curious, keep them involved, structure it, let them prepare and go from control to more freer practice, but personalize it and globalize it as much as possible. And Sprint is a really thorough course to do that. So again, you can drop me a line if you want to ask me for any links or query anything, andy@eltconnections.com, or contact your local representative from ELI at international@elionline.com. Follow them on social media. I'll be back soon with another webinar, and thank you for joining me.